Guys, Master Kid here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so with the theme of Golden Week seemingly, almost confirmed at this point, right, to be Buu Saga related, I wanted to do a video where we take a look at some of the big contenders from the Buu Saga category that could be getting their EZAs during this celebration. Because obviously I know when it comes to these big celebrations, the new headliner units are something that we all look forward to seeing, right? Seeing their kits, seeing their animations, all of that stuff. But a big thing for people, especially, you know, free-to-play players, I mean, we all like getting some free stones, right? But is seeing these Extreme Z battles, who is going to get an EZA, which of these ones we're going to have to grind through, and which of these older units are going to get a new lease of life to come back to our teams, especially when, you know, these new units are coming out. The Buu Saga is a team that hasn't had buffs for a while outside of like one or two random characters getting EZAs, right? Like obviously we saw the STR, Vegito and Physical Buhan get their EZAs during the 9th anniversary, which means they're available on JP but not on global. So especially in terms of the global standpoint, like Majin Buu Saga has not had buffs for a significant amount of time. It's not really a runnable team, at least for the current meta, so very interesting to see how they're going to revitalize that team, because of course we will be getting the new Dual Dokkan Fest, which will have the two headliners, but we'll also have two side banner units as well. So depending on the EZAs to complement those units, Majin Buu Saga teams could obviously be very relevant once again. So we're going to jump straight in and take a look here. I've tried to put them in sort of order of which ones I think are the more likely ones, with then some less likely ones towards the end. And then I did want to mention a couple of potential super EZAs that I think we could see as well. So starting off, we obviously have the Int Super Saiyan 2 Angel Goku that transforms into Super Saiyan 3. I think this makes a lot of sense considering the new unit is most likely a Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku. So this guy getting his EZA makes him essentially the perfect partner to run on that team with the new Goku. Even though he starts out as a Super Saiyan 2, obviously they will share a bunch of links, and then this guy will transform into Super Saiyan 3, and they get the extra couple of links. I would imagine once he transforms into Super Saiyan 3, they just will be 7 out of 7 link partners. So this guy getting an EZA obviously will be very, very beneficial for that team. And then there's of course the Tech Vegeta that goes alongside this Goku that awakens into Majin Vegeta. Now, I did mention in the video I put up earlier about the teaser that Dokkan posted earlier today, that it does seem very likely that the opposing Dual Dokkan Fest unit is going to be Fat Buu, but I saw a lot of people over the weekend saying that it would be much more hype if it was a new Majin Vegeta, which I definitely don't disagree with. And of course, if it was the case that the other unit was going to be Majin Vegeta, that would make this guy getting his EZA as well even more likely. Because the one thing we have to remember is that they did EZA Int Gotenks and then not Tech Exchange Buu. So these guys being a Dual Dokkan Fest doesn't necessarily mean that they will both EZA during the same celebration. However, when it comes to the Gotenks and Exchange Buu situation, I think we mentioned this before in some videos when talking about Int Gotenks, that I think Int Gotenks' EZA came to global so quickly, and they didn't give us any of the other stuff from the Topo celebration, right? Just the Int Gotenks EZA. And that is because I think that the Tech Exchange Buu will almost certainly EZA during this celebration, because then for both versions, global and JP, both Exchange Buu and Gotenks will be EZA'd, and they were, of course, a Dual Dokkan Fest. Now, it means that they didn't EZA at exactly the same time, but only a very small amount of time has passed, right, since Gotenks got his EZA. I mean, for Global, if these units do indeed come out on Friday, it means Gotenks will have only got his EZA a week before the celebration started. I know the EZAs probably won't drop on day one, but it means there was only about a week between them. So they've shown that they will split up Dual Dokkan Fest EZAs, but I think it's just because the other one that was going to get an EZA was right around the corner, and so I think we will see Tech Exchange Buu get an EZA. In terms of ones I would put money on being the EZA, this guy is EZAing 100%, I think, right? Especially if the other banner unit is Fat Buu. You EZA this guy, and then you're good to go. And then I do think this guy is going to get an EZA because of the Goku, and I think with them having caught up with the Gotenks and Fat Buu, this guy will absolutely get an EZA as well. So these three, I think, are the most likely candidates. I could see us getting all three of these during Golden Week. I know they don't always go crazy and drop tons of EZAs, because these guys would be one Extreme Z battle, because of course they would be whatever it's called now, like the Destined Rivals 7 or something, right, for the Goku versus Vegeta dual EZA battles. And then of course this guy could have his own separate one. And then other EZAs, if we were to get any more during the celebration, could always be things like Extreme Z areas and things like that. 2 big Extreme Z battles definitely is very good. We can always hope for a third one, but who knows how many they would do. But speaking of free to play, and obviously units that go along with the Buu or the Fat Buu and like the new sort of Extreme Buu Saga team, we do have the he is a Prime Battle LR, isn't he? The Buu and Barbady. Now, this unit came out in 2020 for JP, 2021 for Global, so pretty old at this point. I mean, this unit is almost, well, actually, yeah, it's over 3 years old now on Global. So these guys getting an EZA. I'm not sure who's next in line, right? But as far as I remember, both JP and Global are caught up with, in terms of Prime Battle LRs that have EZAs, right? Like JP doesn't have one that Global doesn't have yet, I believe. So getting the next Prime Battle EZA at the same time on both versions, and it being the Buu and Barbady, I think would be pretty good. Their link set has always been a little bit weird compared to, like, they don't link up super well with other Buu units specifically, but depending on what they decide to do with this unit with their EZA, they could be kind of interesting. Their passive, they often build these EZAs, they kind of keep the spirit of the original character and then just kind of expand on it. Which for this unit is probably more of a negative, because they're not really doing a crazy amount, right? Like, they could deal alright damage when they came out and would get extra buffs if the enemy had certain status effects, which is something that's not as common nowadays. They do recover HP at the end of the turn, which is nice. I feel like what they really should do with this character, even if they buff and expand on the abilities that they have as part of their passive already, just throw on like a support thing, right? Whether it be just Majin Buu Saga or just a particular character or extreme types, anything like that. Just throw on, like, you know, 3 key attack and defense 40% or something. And then as long as their EZA is good enough that their post-super stats and everything are decent for defensively, even if they're not dropping the craziest attack stats, at least by giving them a support passive, they would have a role on that team, which I think is something that would be quite beneficial. And then of course, not only have we got this guy, the Fat Buu and Barbady, we also have the Barbady and Dabura Battlefield LR. Now, just like Prime Battle LRs, I'm fairly sure that Global and JP are all caught up in terms of the Battlefield LR EZAs, right? Global's last one was the STR King Cold and Frieza, which I believe is the last one that got an EZA on JP. There might be one that I'm missing. But again, just like we said with the Prime Battle LRs, it would make sense that the next one in line for both versions, even if it isn't the next one in line and they're skipping one, right, but the next one for both versions, so that we stay caught up because of, you know, the plan being the sync and everything, is that we get these guys get their EZA. Now, funnily enough, I've never really used these guys all that much. In fact, I don't think I even bought all the copies out of the shop. I think mine are link leveled already, but they are only 55%. So it'd be interesting to see if they do get an EZA, and then obviously you can grab those extra copies and set their build depending on what their EZA is actually going to give them, because these guys are a support unit, right? They give Margin Power allies 3 key, attack and defense 30%, and then they just have a standard kit with like a bit of stats, extra stats if the enemy has the status effects again, which again, like, unfortunately both these units, very much their kit revolves around the enemy having status effects, which is something that's not particularly useful. More bosses can have some status effects now in certain stages, but there's still stages where they can't, which means having a large part of your kit be based around that is not ideal when it comes to doing the more difficult events. So hopefully they do something a little bit more, you know, give them a little bit more. I mean, even if the rest of their kit wasn't super impressive, but then they were giving like Margin Power allies 3 key and like 50% or something, as long as they could at least tank normals, then they would kind of be worthy of a spot on the team. But you have to remember, even though this is a same time celebration, these units are coming out on JP as well as Global, and JP is in the post-anniversary meta. So any of these EZAs from Golden Week ideally need to be designed to be able to handle anniversary content, which of course for Global means we get them early, and then once the anniversary actually does come to Global, a lot of these newer units are going to make some of that new content significantly easier. But they're really going to have to think about how they would make these two guys meta relevant with their EZAs when they both rely on enemy status effects for a large part of their kit. But as long as they make them super good supports that can hold their own, at least against normals, I think they could be interesting additions to the team. But of course, with Barbady and Dabura here together, we also have the standalone Dabura, and that goes hand in hand the standalone TN. These guys, if I remember rightly, were the banner units for Buhan and Vegito, who of course both have their EZAs on JP. So I'm not sure how they would actually no, they weren't their side banner units, were they? Because I'm just looking at the release dates now. They would have released during the worldwide for both versions. Who were they the banner units for then? Were they the banner units for STR Kid Buu and the physical Goku then? Because if they were New Year's for JP and then May for Global, that lines up. Where's STR Kid Buu? Let's double check this here. I don't remember him being his banner unit. No, December and then April. Huh. Who did he come out? Wait, they weren't these guys, were they? 2019 and then 2020. Oh, they were December 2019, May 2020. Oh, I do not remember them being. So this guy was Majin Vegeta's side banner unit, and this guy was the Angel Goku's side banner unit. All right, well there you go. So if they're going to EZA them, this gives them the opportunity, perfect opportunity, do the Extreme Z battle for these two guys, and then give us the missions where we just get the extra medals, and then we get the medals to EZA these guys as well. That would be perfect, because Dabura is an Majin Buu Saga Extreme Allies support unit, so of course would be supporting the new Buu. That would be very useful. And then TN is kind of the opposite, right? Supports superclass Majin Buu Saga allies. So these guys are very basic, like very bare bones kits, because they're very old units. But, you know, we want these good solid support units for these teams. So they need to give them slightly better defensive abilities, ideally things like damage reduction and things like that, considering the current meta. But these guys being supports, even keeping them to being specifically extreme for Dabura and specifically super for TN, isn't the end of the world, as long as they make their passives good enough for them to be usable, and then they will be able to provide good support to these new Goku and Buu teams. So yeah, these guys, if they are in fact the banner units of the Goku and Vegeta, all of those guys could EZA all together, and that would definitely be very, very good. So now we have a couple of ones that I think we could be leading either into part 2 or potentially just more wildcard picks. And of course the big one is Tech Orma Gohan, right? Tech Orma Gohan is now nearing the point of being 4 years old, even on Global. He's over 4 years old on JP, so certainly enough time has passed for this guy to get his EZA. He is a unit that really, in terms of like being completely unusable, he still hasn't really gotten there, right? Like you can still kind of make him work even in some events now, right? So this guy is an EZA that I know people have been really looking forward to, because he really is going to be an interesting case in EZA design, right? Because they're either going to do the bare minimum possible with this guy, and people are going to be disappointed by that, but he'll still probably be somewhat usable, or they'll just do essentially what they did with his release, where his EZA is going to be super good, and then he's just going to be relevant for like the next few years again. So this guy, I know people are super looking forward to. I could see him being part 2, right, and the part 2 LR being just a straight up LR Orma Gohan, and then these guys will obviously link. So that could certainly be very, very interesting. But yeah, Tech Gohan, I don't think he would be a part 1 EZA, because of course Goku versus Fat Buu is kind of early on in the Buu saga, or at least in terms of when Buu finally shows up, right? The beginning of the Buu saga being the Saiyaman, like training Videl, the start of the World Tournament, that kind of thing. But once Buu shows up, right? So Goku versus Fat Buu is the very beginning of that part of the Buu saga, and Orma Gohan is very close to the end. So I think this is more likely to be in part 2, if that was going to be the case. And then there's this random AGL Supreme Kai of Time that I often forget exists, who is a support unit who has Guard, which she gets after receiving an attack. And she gives Realm of Gods allies 40% attack and defense and crit chance. So while she's a Majin Buu Saga character, she's not really like supporting on a Buu Saga team, but she is a unit that could get a really good EZA, and is of course, at least in some way, tied to the Buu Saga, although I'm not sure if we would see this in this celebration in particular, but she is a Buu Saga unit I wanted to pick out. And then another one, of course, for part 2 is this guy. He was the part 2 LR for the celebration in which STR, Vegito and Buhan came out, and of course they both have their EZAs on JP. They'll be getting them on Global for the anniversary, so it would kind of make sense for this guy to be in the celebration somewhere in the same time celebration, because obviously Global is not super far away from the anniversary, where then Vegito and Buhan would get their EZAs, because unless we're going to get another big Buu Saga celebration, and the only place this guy could really then EZA is like the 10th anniversary, right? Because we've seen that they will do characters who are not in line completely with the main theme, like Buhan and Vegito just getting their EZAs in the actual 9th anniversary. So this guy could potentially see an EZA, maybe in part 2 as well, if part 2 ends up being something a little bit later on in the Buu Saga. I mean, hey, the part 2 LR could even be Kid Buu, right? The meme could finally be over, and then this guy getting his EZA at the same time would obviously make perfect sense because he comes from that fight, but that remains to be seen. And then I did want to mention at the end, like I say, two options for a potential Super EZA. Now, we know that they're not going in release order now because they did Goku and then did Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. But this Gohan is one of the OG leads. He comes from that same era as the Super Saiyan 3 Goku. So this guy getting a Super EZA, I definitely think would not be outside of the question. And then, of course, you know, if the Part 2 LR did end up being an Orma Gohan, I guess in that sense it would be disappointing because they'd have the same name. But this could be something related more to the Part 2 stuff. But I know one that a lot of people have mentioned that would be very interesting is physical Kid Buu getting his Super EZA. So this guy, he was someone that he kind of stayed, people used him on teams as like a full dodge build, like dodge or die type character for a long time because he gives 50% attack and defense. So if you could avoid him taking attacks, like he juices up everyone on the team by so much. And considering we have support units that go up to that level, imagine if his Super EZA made him give like 60% support or something. Like he could be absolutely crazy. Super EZAs, as we know, we only changed the passive, so he has no good super attack effect. But this is a unit that, especially if we are getting a new Buu as the Part 1 Dual Dokkan Fest character, this guy getting a Super EZA would be ridiculously good for the Buu team. Because you imagine a new Fat Buu, then we have like this guy getting an EZA, and then physical Kid Buu getting his Super EZA. Like that team would be incredibly good at that point. So I think these two are very big candidates for Super EZAs. We don't know how regularly they want to do Super EZAs, right? Like we've had 2 already. The second one wasn't super far behind the first one. So we don't really know how regularly they want to do them. But if they're going to do a Super EZA during Golden Week, I would expect it to be one of these 2. Although, of course, there are other options as well. So looking back very quickly at the Buu Saga category, none of the other ones majorly stood out. I guess we talked a little bit about the Part 2 stuff that's later on in the saga. The Videl potentially getting an EZA is something that could happen. Also this Super Saiyaman that fights Deborah, I guess he has the potential to be one of the units as well that could see an EZA. I'm trying to think, who was he the banner unit for? Because who was his counterpart? I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, certainly very interesting to think about who could be getting the EZAs during this celebration. There's a couple that really stand out as being very, very good additions to these new teams. Primarily, of course, this guy and then this guy. but I guess it remains to be seen who we will indeed be getting. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who would you most like to see get an EZA? What would you like to see them do? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.